G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you, although it's not today, it's tonight. I'm not sure if you can tell by the light. But today I'm doing a little bit of a follow-up video, and I want to thank Tony Northrop for inspiring me to make this video. I'd like to thank him very much for making a list of specifications, 10 things where the Z9 is better than the A1. So what we're going to do is we're going to add to Tony's list. I've never used an A1, so I'm not going to be talking about things like focus speed because I don't know the difference between them. But there are a lot of things where the Z9 has got a few things to talk about. So I'm going to talk about those things. Let's do it. The Z9 is going to have a big firmware update, and my guess is it's going to be in the first half of this year. It's just a wild guess, but that's what I think. And I think it might be sooner rather than later. And of course, in that, we are getting something massive that the Sony A1 does not have, and that is 8K 60p RAW. Next massive one that's already in the camera is ProRes. Now, to the best of my understanding, this is the very first camera of this category that has ProRes internal. And this is a massive thing. If you want to do it on the A1, you have to attach an external recorder. And let's face it, that is a pain in the ace. Let's talk batteries and battery life. Now, I've had this camera for almost 2 months and the battery life is awesome. There's no problem doing a mix of video, 8K video, 4K video, 120p video, and stills on one battery. And I'm talking to people who can get 6,000, 7,000, maybe even 10,000 images from one battery. That's all awesome. So it's got a very useful and powerful battery. And another aside, which is not necessarily an advantage of the Z9 over the A1, is the fact that I can use batteries from cameras as far back as a decade ago. The batteries from my D4, which still work, are working in this camera. Next, I'm going to talk ergonomics. Now, some might say that this is subjective, and I would accept that in most cases. But the thing about my use case with the Sonys is I've used quite a few of the bodies and a number of lenses, and quite frankly, my hands don't fit properly around the grip, and my fingers with some lenses don't fit between the grip and the lens. So this for me is something that is basically a deal breaker. If my hands don't fit, then the camera is ergonomically doesn't work for me, for my use case. I do think that the Z9 is probably tougher than the A1. Is that on the specification sheet? No. But I think Sony knows. I think Nikon knows. They know. The Z9's the tough one. I mean, it comes from a very long line of D series and even F series cameras. You can take that with a grain of salt. If you think your A1's tougher, that's fine. Here it is, it's a short one, it's a quickie, 8K for more than 2 hours. A1 can't do that. Can't do it. The next thing, which I think is a real boon for Nikon, and that is the high efficiency RAW files, especially high efficiency star, where the files are around about 60% of the size, but they are still near on indistinguishable from a full-sized RAW file, from a normal RAW file, the lossless compressed version. This is a great advantage. By the looks of it, there is no quality difference, yet you can save 1/3 of your hard drive space just by using this. And as it rolls out to all software platforms, it's going to make that format extremely easy to use. Night mode screen, that is where the Z9, in order for you not to lose your night vision. That is definitely something the A1 does not do at the moment. It is possible, I suppose, that that can change in firmware. But right now, that is something that the Z9 does out of the box. And that is pretty cool. Exit stage left. Now, a little fun one that I found And some might not think that this is an advantage, but I do. And that is, when you're shooting in 4K 120, you can crop to DX or APS-C. And on the Z9, it actually jumps to a 2.3 times crop. Now, when are you most likely using 120 frames per second? It might be wildlife, birds, sport. And usually when you're in those sorts of situations, you want reach. You want to get closer to the subject. I do think it's an advantage that you get a 2.3 times crop when in APS-C DX mode on the Z9 when shooting 4K 120 FPS. I tell you, it's a very specific advantage, but it's actually quite cool. Something pretty groundbreaking for Nikon with the Z9 was creating a camera that does not have a physical shutter. Now, there still is a shutter there, but it is simply for the purposes of protecting the sensor. That is pretty cool. And some may argue that a regular shutter is fine as a sensor protector. But to the best of my understanding, a shutter that works at high speed is a very, very delicate device. And really, you don't want to be sticking your fingers on the shutter. As we draw to a close and we bring this list to an end, although I feel like there's probably a few things missing off this list. And of course, there's plenty of space for us to make the 20 things that are better on the A1 than the Z9. Don't get me wrong, that list can be made as well. And I may well do that in the future. But for the list, the Z9 things that are better than the A1, let's keep going. Next, the top screen. The screen is on all the time, even when the camera is off. It still tells you how many shots you've got left on your card or how much video you can shoot if you're shooting video. So depending on whether you're in stills mode or video mode when you turn off, it tells you that. How cool is that? Even when the camera's off. So all you have to do is look in your bag and you can see it on the top screen there. Smart. I like it. It's a win. It's a win. It's a win for professional photographers. Another thing that's great for professional photographers is the 2-button format. Now, I'm not sure this comes with all Nikon cameras, and it certainly hasn't been with any of the other Z cameras, but it's been with a lot of the F-mount cameras. You don't have to go into menus. You literally hold down 2 buttons for a few seconds and then confirm format in slot 1 or 2. That is something that I have been using for years and years on my F-mount cameras. Let's not get our knickers in a knot. See, here's the point. At no point in time am I saying the A1 is no good. I'm not saying that. Now, to the best of my understanding, looking at the specifications, yes, the EVF on the Z9 is brighter. Moving right along. And as a final little quirky one, when the Z9 is in silent shooting mode, and you stick headphones in, you can actually hear the shutter on the headphones. I don't think an A1 does that. Let me know in the comments below. If it does, awesome. That is something cool that they both do. The speaker for the shutter is right here below the eyepiece. So when on the most quietest of setting, it makes the shutter quite inaudible for people at a distance from the camera. So here's the thing. We've had a great time talking about specs, haven't we? We've had a great time. And we've had a great time hearing about how the Z9 may well be better than the A1. And that's great too, you know. It's fantastic that Nikon might have something to crow about. That's a beautiful thing. I don't think the conversation should be purely about specifications, should it? It should be about use case. It should be about budget. It should be about legacy, these things that you've maybe had in your cupboard for a long time. It should be about all these things and more. And the more is, are you actually getting out and shooting? What's making you happy? We can talk about specs until the cows come home. Yes, we can. We can go blue in the face if you want to about it. But I think more importantly is just get out. Get out and make art. That's what I love doing. And here I am. Don't know if you can see this. It's 11:50 at night. And I am in my happy place. So let's get the balance right out there in the internet land, hey? Let's get that balance right between, yeah, specs, they're cool, but It's great to have an amazingly cool, highly spec'd car, but sometimes you've just got to go drive it and look at the mountains and enjoy the exhaust note and enjoy the corners and enjoy the wind in your hair. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same with photography. Specs to a certain point, enjoyment. I'm going to stop talking about specs. I'm also going to stop talking about enjoyment, and I'm just going to go out and I'm going to create some enjoyment. Okay, see ya.